It's time for On the Farm in Alabama, bringing farmers and agribusiness the latest news from Alabama Extension and the Auburn University College of Agriculture. Now here's your host, Alabama Extension Regional Agent, Eddie McGriff.
Good day. I'd like to welcome everybody to On the Farm in Alabama, and today as my guest I have Dr. Steve Brown. He's the cotton specialist with Alabama Extension. Steve, it's a little cool right now, but farmers are thinking about planting cotton. It's right around the corner. Probably late April or early May we'll be putting some cotton in the ground in North Alabama. What kind of advice can you give growers?
Well, obviously now they're finishing up their choices on varieties, maybe putting on lime where it's needed, and making other preparations and beginning burn down herbicide. All those things are taking place in preparation. So those are some of the things they should be doing from that regard. Equipment-wise, I would want to make sure my planter was in good shape so that I knew how much seed I was dropping in every situation, because seed are so expensive today, they're precious. So your targeted rate, you want to put it out there and no more.
Yeah, you don't want to wait to the day of planting to pull your planter out and see if it's working. You want to get it ready right now when you have plenty of time. What about seeding rates on cotton? We see a lot, the technology is expensive. It's going to get more expensive with Thrive-On cotton. What kind of seeding rate are we looking at?
Well, we're in the golden era of seed, in my opinion. In the mid-1990s, when we got in the transgenic era, or just before, a bag of seed cost $35 or thereabouts and weighed 50 pounds. And now that same bag, though it won't weigh 50 pounds, it'll be based on a seed count, it could cost close to $600 or $700 or more. So seeding rates, we have a lot of impetus to go as low as possible. In North Alabama, we're going to be a little more, we're going to plant a little higher rates here than we would further south. 2.5 would be a minimum for most folks. I would say most folks are going to be looking at that 3 to 3.5 seed per foot. You've got to have a good stand, and so that's kind of a target that you're going to use. And most farmers know their planter, they know their field conditions, and there may be some opportunities to adjust up or down, or need to adjust up and down based on conditions that they know about in their equipment and the season as we go. As we approach mid-April and beyond, assuming we have warm weather, if we have available soil moisture, we probably need to think about proceeding with planting. That may not be ideal. We might want to plant everything the first 2 weeks in May, but we got to have soil moisture. So we do make some decisions based on what's available, what our rainfall patterns have been, or what our rainfall patterns will be.
Well, there would be a lot of experimenting this year because we have new Thrive-On varieties out. They'll be released a lot more in the to many growers. So growers will be experimenting with them, the Thrive-On varieties. What's your advice on variety selection?
Well, if you think about the newest stuff, and we'll talk about Thrive-On first, I would be looking at a small percentage of my acres. And as Dr. Graham has said, and maybe in conversations with you and in meetings, we probably want to target those where we know thrips are going to be a severe issue for us, or maybe we're challenged with logistics of spraying a particular field, or where we know we have plant bugs and we expect them to be a problem, and maybe that's often associated with our earliest plantings. But on Thrive-On, simply the supply of seed will sort of hold its introduction. So we may be, 5 or 10%, but farmers need to gain experience with that technology and with those varieties, because we're going to see more and more of those in the future. In terms of other variety selection, we have on-farm tests that you participate in. There's certainly good ones scattered across North Alabama. And then we have the official variety trials that we have on our experiment station farms, which would be small plots, but which would probably measure sheer agronomic potential, whereas the on-farm trials would maybe give an answer more what in the real world with realistic management, what can we do year in and year out. So I would look at those results and begin looking at the top 4 or 5 varieties that are consistently there. And that's maybe one other point to make, is that we're not going to plant a single variety. We probably should be looking at multiple entries on a farm just to scatter out our risk, because we're not going to hit a home run with everyone every time. So we do need to look at maybe 3, 4, 5 varieties on a farm in a big way, but then also reserve some acres for experimenting, as you said a moment ago.
Before I let you go, I'd just like to recap the 2022 season. I know that up in North Alabama, especially in the northeast to the north central, we just had a tremendous cotton year. The overall yield in some of our bigger counties, Cherokee and Madison, was right around 1,100 pounds. So that's excellent. One thing that really probably helped us more than anything is that we had a good harvest season. Last 4 years, it's been progressively a terrible harvest season. So if we can get a good harvest season, that goes a long way to making great yields.
The state average is going to be somewhere around 900 to 930 or 40 pounds on the 2022 crop. And I know in parts of the Tennessee Valley, for example, with dry conditions, corn was very disappointing, whereas cotton, as it fruits over a long period of time, maybe surprised some of them. They made a much better crop than expected, and it does help tremendously when we get a fall that we have a lot of open weather. The cotton matures well, farmers can get in and pick it on a timely basis. So that was a big plus for the 2022 crop. We're hoping for similar things in 2023.
Yeah, I would say that probably the biggest advice I could give farmers is get in there as soon as possible. When your cotton's ready, get it defoliated and pick it as soon as possible. We had, even with the good yields that we had last year, we had some growers that for whatever reason were delayed, and actually we had some of that cotton picked in 2023. Of course, the yields were really suffered, but not only that, the grades. When I've talked to growers, they said those grades went 62, which cotton farmers will know that's a pretty rough grade, and most of it went for molts, a very low price.
On the whole, the crop was extremely good in terms of fiber quality and color in particular. That which was harvested later really suffered, and the rush to get things done at harvest is a real important thing to capture both yield and fiber quality. You can't say that enough, and logistically it's easy to say but not always easy to accomplish. But that's an important part of successful production is really the timeliness of harvest and getting it done and having the capacity to do that. And that's a real bonus to us where we can do that.
Well, I agree. I had a good friend and a really good cotton farmer, Nick McMeekin, asked me, he said, you think I'm doing wrong by defoliating this early? And I said, you're not early, you're right on time. It's important to get our crop out as soon as possible, not only for yield but also for quality.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I want to thank Steve for being with us today on the farm, and thank everybody for tuning in.